Well, while we've got you on Africa, I've actually got a couple of questions that go a little bit further back than even Mangkulu. Um, could you please briefly describe your involvement in the Angola Civil War?
Wow, you got good questions. Angolan Civil War. So my parents had a farm that went bankrupt when I was 6, and so we had to go somewhere. So we actually moved to Vancouver for a bit, which is the other side of Canada, and tried to make things work on a farm there, and it wasn't working. So my father, particularly, but my parents decided to become missionaries, and so they had originally been supportive. They came from a long line of missionaries. They had my father, and so his childhood friend was in Angola and invited my family to go live in Angola. And so I don't think looking back, my mother has admitted she did not realize it was going to be as bad as we thought. But it's equivalent of moving to Ukraine right now and moving
Mm,
into the red section of Ukraine that's getting taken over. But then there's a little hospital barrier ground that they say we're not going to bomb that area.
yeah.
And so we were in this compound, hospital compound, that we were not supposed to leave. Now the hospital compound was big. I mean, big area. But that's where all of the patients were. There was a leprosarium for lepers. There was it was in the depths of Africa and like the jungle. I mean, we're in the middle of absolutely nowhere. I it was great for me. I was 7 at that point, so 7, 8, 9, 10, and I was hanging out in the middle of the African middle of nowhere. Not really jungle area. There were jungle areas, but I could do whatever I wanted because it was as long as I didn't leave the compound. And even
Yeah.
then, I would leave the compound. Like I was on a bike. I was a kid. I was like, no rules for me. And so, I'd go drive through the leprosarium on a regular basis because on the other side of that, there was a cool river that we could go collect toads at, stuff like that. And so
Trade
I kind of
frogs, even.
didn't have to go to school because there was no school. Yeah, exactly. So I just lived in it. Now, what's really interesting though is I lived in this house called the Sapalalo, which is this two-story house, the only two-story house. So it was called the skyscraper, even though it was only 2 stories. But there were no other houses in that entire province that had 2 stories, and it was the original house of the missionary that was sent to this area to make sure the Angolan slave trade had stopped. Because even though slavery had stopped around the world, it actually didn't stop in Angola for like decades afterwards. And so a couple of Swiss missionaries were sent around to try and figure out who was still doing it. Anyway, so we ended up right in the center of town, on the center of the road. The road actually went around it, like in the original plantation roads,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
was
yeah.
so that the missionary could watch who was coming down the road and make sure there's no slaves being, stolen. And so we were actually on the battlefield front line, like literally every day there would be like soldiers with missing legs, stuff,
Yeah,
going
yeah,
down the
yeah.
road, being taken to the hospital. And so we were sort of in the center of the war, but not in the center of the war, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
But every
and
you weren't allowed out at night. There was a curfew, and if you looked out your window at night, there were bullets and things and bombs going off, and you could always see that. And there's always MiGs, which are the like Soviet made, going over 20 feet above the ground, constantly like it would shake the whole house. It was kind of constant war, and just lived in it.
you have the most fucking weird life. And I've got so many more questions. Because to yada yada over a little bit more of your childhood and stay in Africa. You went to a military school in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, so military school. I wouldn't call it military school. So it was a private school that was highly disciplined, but they sent us a few times to like camps that were military discipline camps. We went to survivalist schools a couple of times, or survivalist camps. Like they would take us out in the middle of the jungle and give us a katana, and say survive. And like
A
don't go back towards
katana?
the road. Like a knife. And then say
Okay, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say like a machete. Yeah,
Sorry,
but
a
like
machete. Yeah. They called it a katana, but you're right. It's a machete.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah. I
wrong
was
culture.
picturing like the full like
The full
Japanese thing,
katana.
and
Yeah,
like
no,
because
like a
already
machete.
it's fucking weird.
Yeah, and sometimes they give us a map. Like this is how they taught us how to do orienteering. Like, here's a map. Here's a compass. Like there's not only no cell phones. There's no electricity. Here's a
Yeah.
map. Here's a compass. Find your way home. This is how we're going to teach you. And sometimes they'd lose children, literally, like for days. Now, being reasonably intelligent, I was able to figure out how to use a compass and how to use a map. I was paying attention in class and was able to find my way
Yeah,
home.
you'd
And then for
want
the next two
to.
days, you'd have lost children. And eventually, a couple of kids died. So they had to get the camp down. So, but there was things
I
like we'd have
shouldn't
to
laugh. I
climb.
shouldn't laugh. Sorry, sorry. You're breaking me, Sean. You're breaking me.
And you know what? I wasn't the only guy there. So you could talk to even my friends there, like Innocent Chidzero or Brent Dawes. These are like still close friends who live in various like Innocent lives in New York, and I'm sure nobody believes his stories. Nobody would believe that he went to survivalist camp and they made us climb up a waterfall with no harness, like go over the top of a chasm. They made, they'd take us out in the middle of the jungle and say, "You're here all day. Don't die from snake bites or whatever." And this is very active animal environments, stuff like that. It's all very fun.
Let's keep the crazy life stories going because there's one that I had only discovered like 4 hours ago, only in passing. Right at the tail end of this Glanville Productions documentary from like a year ago. I don't know if you remember doing that. Um,
Vaguely, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it was just this little footnote saying something about you being shot before.
Not I've been shot at. I've never been shot. Uh,
Okay. All right. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, I've been shot at. I've been
That's
shot at a
it.
bunch of times. That's just part of like most people. There's lots of people in the world who've been shot at. Let's be honest. Like there are
Yeah.
people right now being shot at. So it's not like this super unbelievable, crazy story. Um,
I
but in
think it.
Angola, I mean, there's a lot of we came across attacks. There's a lot of shooting in different directions and blah blah blah. So who knows how many times actually we got shot at that point. But like intentionally shot at. I got once in Canada, northern British Columbia. I was working as a mushroom picker, like not like a like
Yeah.
gourmet
Yeah. Yeah.
mushrooms,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we had no idea. We were just running around the woods, and we went into a place that we were not supposed to be, very clearly, and it was just warning shots. Like a shot at might have been a little bit of a thing, but you're being shot like you're seeing the bullets hit the trees, kind of thing, and you're like, okay, we are very much in the wrong place, the wrong time. Not like we were being jerks. We were trying to be. We were just picking mushrooms. We were clearly in somebody else's mushroom patch. So yeah, that's an example of like you're just in a very strange situation getting shot at. So